Throwaway account because I don't want this tied back to my main. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd post something like this on Reddit, but here I am, typing it out at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep and my head won't shut up. I'm a father in my late 50s, divorced, ordinary guy, nothing special. For most of my life, my purpose was pretty simple: go to work, pay the bills, try not to mess up raising my kid. My daughter is an adult. I need to say that clearly before anything else. Still, knowing that doesn't make what I found out hurt any less. I didn't discover it myself. I didn't snoop or spy. It came from someone else, which somehow makes it worse. An old coworker ran into me at a gas station. We exchanged the usual awkward small talk, and then he hesitated. You know that pause when someone is deciding whether to say something or not? I should have walked away right then. Instead, he asked me if my daughter lived in the city. Then he asked if she went by a different name sometimes. My stomach dropped before he even showed me anything. He didn't say much. Just handed me his phone, said, "I thought you should know," and looked away like he was ashamed for me. On the screen was a profile. A picture I recognized instantly, even though she was wearing makeup I'd never seen her wear and smiling in a way that felt wrong to look at. That was the moment everything I thought I understood about my life started to fall apart. I wish I could say I reacted calmly. That I handled it like an adult. The truth is, I didn't react at all at first. I just stood there at the gas station, holding someone else's phone, staring at the screen like it was written in a language I didn't understand. My coworker kept talking, explaining how he'd stumbled across the profile, how he wasn't even sure it was her at first. I couldn't hear most of it. There was this loud ringing in my ears, like after an explosion in a movie. I nodded at the wrong moments, handed the phone back with hands that didn't feel like mine, and muttered something about needing to go. I sat in my car afterward and cried. Not the dramatic kind. Just quiet, shaking sobs that made my chest hurt. I kept thinking, I failed. Somewhere along the way, I failed so badly that this is where we ended up. On the drive home, every red light felt like punishment. I replayed old conversations, trying to find the moment where things went wrong. Was it the divorce? The long hours at work? The nights I was too tired to ask how her day really went? By the time I got home, I felt empty. Not angry yet. Not even sad in a clean way. Just hollow. Like someone had taken the one thing that gave my life direction and cracked it down the middle. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, staring at the floor, knowing I had to talk to her, and knowing that whatever I said, whatever she said back, nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't confront her right away. I thought about it all night, pacing the house like a ghost. Every sound she made from her room felt amplified: a door closing, footsteps, her laugh on the phone. I kept thinking, she's right there. She's the same person she was yesterday. And yet she wasn't. Or maybe I just didn't know her at all. The next morning, I asked her if we could talk. I tried to keep my voice neutral, like we were going to discuss groceries or bills. She looked at me strangely, like she already sensed something was wrong. We sat at the kitchen table. Same table where I helped her with homework years ago. Same chipped mug in front of me. My hands were wrapped around it so tightly my knuckles hurt. I didn't ease into it. I didn't know how. I just said her name and asked her if there was something she needed to tell me. She froze. That silence told me everything before she even opened her mouth. When I said what I'd seen, when I told her someone had shown me, her face went pale, then hard. She didn't cry. She didn't deny it. She just leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms like she was bracing for impact. Yes, she said. One word. Flat. Final. I remember feeling this surge of emotion, anger, fear, shame, confusion, all crashing into each other. I asked why in a dozen different ways. She answered some questions and shut down others. Said it was her choice. Said she needed the money. Said I wouldn't understand. And maybe she was right. All I understood in that moment was that the distance between us had never felt so wide, even though we were sitting just a few feet apart. Once the truth was out, something in me broke loose. The calm I'd been forcing just evaporated. I raised my voice. I'm not proud of that, but I won't lie about it either. I asked her how she could do this, how she could put herself in danger, how she could throw her life away like it meant nothing. She shot back just as hard. Told me I didn't get to judge her. Told me I wasn't around as much as I thought I was. That one hurt more than anything else she said. Every sentence felt like a punch. I wanted to protect her, to fix it, to rewind time, but all that came out was anger wrapped around fear. I accused her of being reckless. She accused me of being controlling. We dug up old wounds that had nothing to do with that morning and used them like weapons. At some point, she started crying. That should have stopped me. Instead, it made me feel worse. Like I'd driven us both into a corner with no exit. After she went back to her room and slammed the door, I sat alone at the table. The anger drained out of me and left behind this heavy guilt. I kept thinking about how easy it is to yell when you're scared, and how hard it is to admit that you don't know what to do. I didn't sleep that night either. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how a single conversation could make a house feel so empty. The days after that fight blurred together. We existed in the same house but barely spoke. When we did, it was stiff, careful, like we were both afraid one wrong word would set off another explosion. I went to work, came home, sat in silence. She did the same, except her silence felt heavier, more deliberate. That's when the sadness really set in. Not the dramatic kind. The quiet kind that seeps into everything. I stopped eating real meals. I'd forget to turn the TV on, forget to answer texts. I'd sit in my car after work, hands on the steering wheel, wondering what I was even going home to anymore. Being a father had been my anchor. When my marriage ended, when my parents died, when life kept shrinking, being her dad was the one thing that still made sense. And now that role felt meaningless. I couldn't protect her. I couldn't guide her. I couldn't even understand her. I kept asking myself if this was punishment for something. Some failure I never noticed at the time. I replayed moments from her childhood, looking for warning signs like clues in a bad detective story. Every memory started to feel tainted. One night, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. I looked older. Smaller. Like someone who had already given up, even if he hadn't admitted it yet. That was when it hit me, I wasn't just losing my relationship with my daughter. I was losing my sense of purpose. And I had no idea how to get it back. At some point, anger and sadness stop being loud. They just sit with you. That's where I was. I realized that if I kept going the way I was going to lose whatever was left of myself, not just my relationship with her. So I tried something different. I asked her to talk again, really talk. No accusations. No raised voices. Just explanations. She agreed, reluctantly. She told me things I wasn't ready to hear. About debt. About feeling trapped. About choices that started small and snowballed into something she couldn't undo without blowing up her life. She said she didn't feel proud of it, but she didn't feel ashamed either, just tired. Listening to her was like swallowing broken glass. Every instinct in me wanted to interrupt, to tell her there were other ways, that I could help. But I stayed quiet. I forced myself to hear her, even when it hurt. For the first time, I stopped seeing her as the little girl I'd failed to protect and started seeing her as an adult making decisions I couldn't control. That realization didn't bring peace. It brought grief. Because letting go of that version of her meant accepting that my role in her life had changed forever. I suggested therapy. For both of us. She laughed at that, not cruelly, just sadly, and said I was the one who needed it more. Maybe she was right. That night, for the first time since everything came out, I cried without feeling angry. Just exhausted. And strangely, that felt like the beginning of something, even if I didn't yet know what that something was. I started seeing a psychologist a few weeks later. Walking into that office felt like admitting defeat, but I didn't know what else to do. I told him everything, the discovery, the fights, the way I felt like my life had collapsed inward. He listened without flinching, which somehow made it easier and harder at the same time. He said something that stuck with me: "You're grieving. Not just what your daughter is doing, but the future you thought you were guaranteed." That hurt, because it was true. For a while, things at home improved. Not in a warm, happy way, but in a fragile truce. We talked more. Sometimes we even laughed, carefully, like people testing thin ice. I told myself this was reconciliation. That if I just worked on myself hard enough, everything would eventually make sense again. I tried to be supportive without approving. That line nearly broke me. I told her I loved her, that I was worried, that I wanted her safe. She told me she appreciated that, but she also made it clear she wasn't planning to stop. Every small step forward came with a reminder of the gap between us. I'd leave therapy feeling hopeful, only to come home and realize that hope didn't change reality. I was learning how to cope, not how to fix anything. Still, I clung to the idea that love would be enough. That understanding would bridge the distance. I didn't realize yet that sometimes understanding just makes the pain clearer. The breaking point didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, small moments that piled up until I couldn't pretend anymore. I'd lie awake at night listening for the front door, counting the hours, imagining every worst-case scenario. Every time my phone rang late, my heart would race. I started living in a constant state of dread, like fear had moved into my chest and decided to stay. One evening, I asked her simple questions: where she was going, when she'd be back. I told myself it was normal concern. She heard it as control. The argument flared up fast, hotter than the previous ones. She told me she felt judged every time she walked into the house. I told her I felt like I was slowly dying from worry. That's when she said something I still hear in my head sometimes. "Then maybe this house isn't good for either of us anymore." I knew what she meant, and I hated that part of me agreed. I realized I was no longer helping her, and she was destroying what little stability I had left. Therapy had taught me about boundaries, but no one really prepares you for how cruel boundaries can feel when they involve your own child. That night, I sat alone in the dark living room, thinking about how love can exist alongside something you simply cannot accept. And how choosing yourself can feel like the most selfish, devastating decision of your life. I didn't make the decision in a moment of rage. That's what scares me the most. It came quietly, after weeks of feeling like I was drowning in my own home. My psychologist asked me a question that felt almost cruel: what happens to you if nothing changes? I didn't answer right away. Then I realized I already knew. I was disappearing. Slowly, but completely. I stopped recognizing myself as her father and started feeling like a bystander to a life I couldn't influence. Every day was fear, tension, waiting for the next argument or the next knock on the door. Love had turned into constant anxiety, and I was carrying it alone. So I told her we needed to talk. Again. I told her I loved her. I told her that hadn't changed and probably never would. But I also told her I couldn't live like this anymore. That watching her choices destroy me wasn't something I was strong enough to survive. She listened. Really listened. She didn't scream this time. She didn't cry either. She just looked tired. Older than she should have looked. When I said she couldn't stay in the house if she planned to continue, the words tasted like ash. I waited for her to fight me on it. She didn't. She just nodded, like she'd been expecting it all along. That hurt more than any argument we'd ever had. We sat there in silence after that, two people who loved each other but had finally admitted that love wasn't enough to make things work. The next morning, she left. I watched her walk down the street carrying a small bag, her head held high but her shoulders heavy. I didn't follow. I didn't call. I didn't know what to say that wouldn't hurt both of us even more. It's been about 4 years since that day. We haven't spoken. Not a word. Not a text, not a call. Sometimes I wonder if she's okay, if she's found a better path, or if she even thinks about me at all. Most days, I just try to survive the emptiness she left behind. I still miss her. I still love her. But I can't undo what's been done, and I can't keep sacrificing myself to a situation that will never change. I think about her often, and it breaks me every single time, but I also know that holding on to hope for something that's gone is just another kind of suffering. I kicked my daughter out of the house. I haven't spoken to her since. And I don't know if I ever will. Some wounds, no matter how much you love, are too deep to heal together.